Welcome to the Imposter Roster, the secret lives of capable women. I'm John Gay. I'm usually the producer-editor behind the scenes, but our host has asked me to come on and facilitate the discussion in our very first episode. And with that, I'll welcome our hostess with the mostest, Christine Chubenko. Christine, welcome to your own podcast.
Well, thank you, John. I'll bet you don't have to do that very often.
That particular line, no.
Well, I will tell you, I, for one, am very grateful that you are doing that for me because this is my first foray into having my own show. So with you at the helm, I feel very comfortable and confident. So thank you.
Well, I'm happy to be here. Why don't we start by you giving us a little background about how this came together?
Well, to do that, I need to introduce my friend, Emily Roble, who was with me when this idea came upon me. Emily, say hi.
Hey there.
So Emily and I have coffee regularly. We meet up and we just talk about what's happening. It was July, right, Emily? Didn't I say it was July of last year you and I were talking?
It was July 18th.
Emily was having a situation, not necessarily with work, but, part of her skill set and some things that she was looking at doing, etc. And I know that at the time she was feeling frustration and Em, just go ahead and correct me on this, almost feeling like you weren't good enough or you weren't suitable to do a job that you wanted to do or you had the skill set needed to do what you were hoping to do. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Right on the nose.
She was just telling me that, I don't know, maybe I'm not in the right spot at all. And I know, Emily, this woman is detail-oriented. She dives deep. When she talks about something, she knows what she's talking about. And I was taken by surprise because I'm looking at her and she presents so well, whether it's written, speaking, it doesn't matter. And I thought, how in the world could you be questioning yourself? And then I popped back to myself. I have been in the software industry as a software developer, as a programmer. I've worked in AI for a long time. And by long time, I do mean over 30 years. And I'm looking at this person who's been in the workforce doing what she's doing for about 10 years. Is that right?
Yeah, about 10, 15.
Yeah. So she's half the time that I've been there. And here she's experiencing in the year of 2025 at the time, things that I've been experiencing for a long time. And as I was talking to her, I just was talking about imposter syndrome. And I just thought, I just can't believe this. I can't believe that this is still happening. Someone like you would be feeling this. And that was when, and I know Emily was looking at me and she saw the light bulb go off in my head. And I said, oh my God, I got it. And I love alliteration. I love when things rhyme. And I said, you know what? We should just do a podcast called the Imposter Roster. Did it not just fall out of my mouth like that, Emily?
It literally was just like that. Just like all of the little pieces clicked right in. And just as you said, it was a absolute just light bulb moment.
Let me jump in for a second, Christine. For anybody listening that doesn't know the term, could you give us a quick definition on imposter syndrome?
Yes, I can. This is the Merriam-Webster definition. It's a psychological condition that is characterized by persistent doubt concerning one's abilities or accomplishments accompanied by the fear of being exposed as a fraud despite evidence of one's ongoing success. And the clinical psychologists Pauline Rose Clance and Suzanne Imes, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, first described this back in 1978. So that was 48 years ago. I would add on to that description, no matter how much education you have, no matter how much experience you have, no matter how many accolades you've gotten, no matter how much you've achieved, all it takes is one side eye and it's like, you know what, I'm not good enough. And there you go, doubting yourself. And when you doubt yourself, you don't put your best foot forward. Instead, you say, you know what, I should just retract who I am, retract how I feel, and just because I'm probably wrong. Emily, tell me if I'm right on this one. When you're experiencing imposter syndrome, it does not care what age you are or what you do or your ethnic background. It doesn't care. It makes you feel like I shouldn't be here. I'm not qualified. I should just step away.
It does. It makes you doubt everything that you've experienced and that you've been through, and as hard as you've worked for whatever accomplishments that they may have been. And when we were talking about, our conversation last July, and I was telling you about what I was going through, you had also shared some similar stories as well. And I also couldn't think, I'm like, oh my God, here's someone who I think has got it all together, has accomplished so much in her lifetime, and is an expert in what you do. And you're also feeling these similar things too. So that's when I knew. I think that's when we both knew that there's something here. Like you just said, it doesn't matter how old you are, where you come from, or anything like that. It can affect anybody.
I think it's a great point, Emily, because I know the show is going to be focused specifically on women. But as a guy, I will say I've experienced it many times. A lot of my guy friends have experienced it many times. To me, there are two types of people: those who've experienced imposter syndrome and those who are lying about it.
John, I'm really glad you brought that up, because my intention was to put focus on women, but it's not just women who experience it. It just happens to be that I am female, so I feel more comfortable talking about what I actually know and have experienced. However, I fully 100% believe men experience it as well. And in some ways, it's harder because, as you know, big boys don't cry, you don't complain, and you already know what you're supposed to be doing, so just go do it, right?
Absolutely. You know, I am the rare guy that shows my emotional side. My wife teases me sometimes that we have a role reversal sometimes, but I think generally speaking, you're right.
Well, actually, the fact that that's what you chose is very timely for the era we're moving into with respect to 2026 and all the changes that are happening around the world. This is where guys need to start adopting what you already know, John, which is probably why you're a professional in this industry, because you know how to extract information from people, how to get them to be who they're supposed to be. That is key. If we could all be who we're supposed to be, how phenomenal. Every time you look around, there'd be like, oh my God, I could learn from that.
So, Chris, what do you ultimately want to get out of this podcast? For everyone who's listening here, what do you want them to leave this podcast and remember and realize and bring into their personal lives?
My intention for this podcast is really to be a venue of inspiration and education where we're hearing stories told by amazing individuals. When I say inspire, you hear a really good story and it can inspire you. It can also make you feel bad. It can make you feel angry, but it makes you feel. And when somebody's story touches you, it's probably because it's part of your story as well. And then when you hear how they rose above whatever the thing was, you say, ooh, maybe I can do that too. And that's where the educational part comes in. Storytelling has historically, since man first popped on planet Earth, storytelling was used to educate people. And I feel very strongly that we have so many experts out there and they're good at what they do. And they say, here's how you do this thing. Step 1, step 2, step 3. Or remember these 4 stages and then you can accomplish blah, blah, blah. That's wonderful. That's not what this podcast is about. This podcast is about hearing real people who are not experts. The only thing they're an expert in is their life and their experience and how they were able to jump a hurdle that could have kept them away from their success. And I want listeners to just sit back, drink a cup of coffee, maybe do the dishes, I don't know, dust, and listen to the story and let it just sit with you. And when that person is telling their story, they're also liberating themselves. And that really is the point, to reconnect with other humans, see yourself in them. Community is everything. And then at the end of it all, have that person say, wow, not only did that really happen, so you're witness to it, we're all witness to it, but there's other people who heard that, yeah, that happened, and I feel stronger, and I don't think I'm an imposter anymore. I know what I know. That is the point of it.
Christine, you strike me as an empath just by the way you're speaking, and there's an empathy aspect to this podcast, the way you're describing it. And I think, yeah, our listeners are going to connect with the stories that we're going to hear on the podcast. And then as a result, hopefully connect with how our guests have overcome their imposter syndrome.
It's funny you said that, John. I usually don't talk about it, but the fact is I am an empath. And I can tell you this. being a female in a very dominated male world. When you keep in mind that I got my master's degree in artificial intelligence in 1997, you can only imagine the company with whom I was keeping while I was getting that degree and then when I was trying to actually use that degree. Empathy was not a part of our vocabulary. Empathy, if we would use more of it, no matter who we are or what we do, I think there would be fewer problems in the world.
That might be the understatement of the year. So, Christine, Emily asked you what you want to accomplish with this podcast, and I really think you answered that pretty well. But give our listeners an idea of what they can expect from the podcast, format-wise, what it's going to look like going forward.
I want to talk with individuals from all disciplines because, honestly, I think I could choose somebody from any sort of background and we would all see ourselves in that one person, no matter who we are. So it would be choosing a guest that can say, I'm done feeling less than, and I don't think I'm suffering from that anymore. That's kind of why I want to have a venue where they can tell their story, and I want to hear, so how did you get to that point? Because I'll tell you, I'll be honest, even last week, it took very little for me to suddenly say to myself, who am I kidding? I can't do this. And it was about software. I mean, there's nothing I know better than software. And I just remembered some tiny, tiny little thing. I just thought, oh, who am I kidding? Okay, so we could all use that. We want to know, so how would you do it? You don't necessarily have, let's say, a particular strategy for everything that happens to you in your life. So that's why I want to do the storytelling thing. Talk to someone who says, okay, so here's my story. Get to the point where we can find out, so how did you get past that? They tell us, and we learn from that. I have friends who always tease me and say, oh my God, you ask so many questions. And yes, I do. Because I honestly, when you're telling me something that's important to you, I want to be there with you. I want to hear you. I want to feel that experience best as I can via your description. And if I don't ask the questions and I'm just like on the surface level, just scooting along, no, I want to be in there with you.
As a podcast producer, Christine, trust me, asking too many questions is going to be a great quality for you to have as we go through this podcast.
Well, I do have a friend, every time she tells me something, she'll say, and before you ask me, she'll just go through this like litany of details. And I'll say, oh, really good. Okay, yeah, I was going to ask you all those questions. So
if you have her on the podcast, have her let you ask the questions, just as a coaching point from your producer.
That's how I imagine I would start out. I can see having every so often a so-called expert that might give us a piece of information that's fairly new. And I just like to explore the different topics that might actually cause you to feel like you are less than. And above all, and I'm really glad I'm saying this now, this is not about, well, I work in a man's world and they made me feel really bad. So I had to get really tough and I realized I am all that and a bag of chips. No, you're not going to go around blaming people. That's what we learn. Even when you have, growing up, well, my parents were awful and I could, there comes a point in your life where you say, I will take full agency of myself and take care of it. That's what this is about. It's not about punishing others. It's not about getting retribution or anything like that. It's about finding yourself and saying, wow, just like Dorothy, Wizard of Oz, I've always had that power and you've got your ruby slippers. I want you to feel like, whoa, I've always had that. And we're all here to learn lessons. Now, you going to learn it or are you going to go blame people?
That's a great point. It's about taking control of your own narrative and not blaming your situation on others. I want to bring Emily back into the conversation for a moment. I'm certainly not going to ask you the details of the conversation that sparked this podcast when you were telling Christine about your own moment of imposter syndrome. But have there been strategies or things you've thought of since that conversation last summer that have helped you navigate through it?
That is the $1 million question and what we're looking to get out of this whole podcast.
Right.
So everything that I've done, I just keep doing it, even when I'm scared, even if I don't think it's going to work out, even if I know, even if I say I think it won't work out, but everything else tells me that it will. I just know that I'm going to have to do it regardless. But there's a quote that kind of encompasses that. It's by Dr. Susan Jeffers, and she said, "Feel the fear and do it anyways."
I love that.
I read that book. It is awesome. I use that quote myself when I feel like, oh my God, I'm going to throw up. I can't do this. And then you say, well, you're going to have to. There's no going back. So, Emily, let me ask you this. Would you not also agree it's the company you keep and that you absorb from others around you? Even if you're not talking about a specific subject, would you not agree that you absorb like their vibes and they're like, hey, I can do this. And you kind of look at that other person and you say, well, if she can do it or he can do it, why can't I?
I agree 100%. And I think the opposite of that is a contributor to why we have imposter syndrome itself. So we may have been around people who tell us that we don't know what we're doing, or maybe in less direct ways insinuate that. And sometimes it can only take just one person, one spark for you to start questioning yourself and all of your experiences. But the opposite, like what you're saying, is exactly true as well. It takes just one person, it takes one spark for you to think, whoa, if they see it and I trust them, I trust their opinion and they know what they're talking about. So maybe it is true. Maybe I can actually do this and know what I'm talking about. And so the people that you're with can either make or break how you feel about yourself. And life's too short to be around people who make you not feel great about yourself. That's not what we're here for. That's not what this is all about.
There you go. Feelings, right? It's how you feel about yourself. It's not even your book learning. Like you're just saying it right now. It's how you feel about yourself.
Most people with imposter syndrome will have had the book learning and the experience and everything like that. That contradicts their imposter syndrome itself, too. So it doesn't even make sense sometimes.
You know, a moment ago, we talked about not blaming others for where you ended up, but Emily makes a really good point there that there is an influence there. And you can understand where your internal imposter syndrome comes from external factors. But back to the point we made a moment ago, I think it really is about finding your internal motivation and drive and understanding to get through it. And even those who have battled through imposter syndrome really, really well, they're probably going to still have moments where they question things.
They actually do. Like I said, it happened to me last week. You know, honestly, I had to battle through imposter syndrome to even consider starting this podcast. But there was that voice in me that said, well, you know yourself, Christine, you're not going back. Once an idea hits you deep, deep in your heart, it's not going away until you execute it, period, and the end. So you're just going to have to get over your bad self. That's exactly how I got to this point where I'm actually talking to Emily and John.
So as we wrap up, I've got to say that I've met both of you in person several times. And to an outside observer, as you alluded to in the beginning of the show, you both really have your act together. So it actually makes me feel good to know that you've both dealt with imposter syndrome yourself a little bit. And it's not just me or other people that I've talked to. So I really think this is a universal topic that our listeners are going to get a lot out of. Christine, when can people expect the show to come out? And we look forward to hearing more from you.
Well, you should be hearing this first episode where I'm describing all this on the 17th of February, which is the third Tuesday. It's going to be the third Tuesday of every month until something changes and perhaps I can crank out 2 per month. I don't know, but right now we're starting out with 1 per month, third Tuesday of every month.
Well, it sounds good. And I encourage you to follow the show for free in Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you're listening right now. And welcome to the Imposter Roster podcast.
Thank you so much, John. And thank you, Emily, for this maiden voyage. I couldn't have done it without you because you were there when I thought about it.
Thank you both. It's been a fantastic time on here.